Good afternoon. Thank you for making us a part of your afternoon. The program is Nigeria Now, where we look at some of the issues that are happening presently in the country. I am Sela Elisha Dasham, and I will be doing the program with Rachel Tansy. Good afternoon, Rachel.
Afternoon, Sele.
All right, we still have quite a number of things we'd love to look at on the show this afternoon. You remember you can be part of it on Facebook and on YouTube, and then you can also drop your views and recommendation. And we will be starting with an order that is coming from the federal government. We will recall, like, for the past 2-3 days, the issue of food insecurity have been the talk on the lips of every Nigerian, because you cannot even touch anything in the market without hearing an outrageous price, and then you wonder how can you survive at a time we're talking about even the minimum wage. You have to wait till the second quarter of the year, and then we have quite a number of things as well regarding the issue of regulating the price of foodstuff. And here we're seeing, I mean, this was an order that was given by the Federal High Court in Lagos, where we saw that, I mean, a report, or rather an appeal, was being submitted to the court by Falana, and we know it seems as if he's the only lawyer that always tends to take so much of whatever is happening. He tends to be at the forefront trying to see how we can actually bring up, some solutions, and how we can come with something more bearable. We're seeing that, I mean, the president just got into the country. He set up a committee, which he said they need to look into the issue of opening the food reserve. And a number of experts and analysts are coming out to say, where is the reserve? Because we're seeing that farmers cannot even make it to the farm because of the issue of insecurity. So we cannot separate the issue of food from insecurity, because once farmers are secure, then we are sure that we can actually have food in the market. But then, I mean, I remember you raising a concern in the morning show yesterday also, where you said the problem here is that we do not have food shortage. The problem here is that we have food insecurity, that when you go to the market, of course, you see all the commodities, all the goods that you're looking for, but the problem here is that the price keeps going up every day. In fact, not even every day right now, Richard. In the morning, the price is different from in the afternoon. The price is different from in the evening. And here we're saying the court is giving the federal government 7 days to come up with something tangible and to actually regulate the price. I think they mentioned a number of things that actually skyrocketed, the likes of salt, sugar, flour, spare part for motorcycles, cars, and the likes of it. And then you just start asking questions such as, okay, how is the federal government going to regulate this price? Because some of these things are being run by private individuals. So how is the government going to dive into this to make sure that they regulate the prices of these things? Because, I mean, we saw the prices of rice, onions, and the likes of other things. I mean, comparing it last year to this year, you know that there have been over some of the goods as high as 114% increment in some of them. So you start asking questions, where's the Nigerian government going to start from at this point in time?
It's a good thing, Sele, that we have someone like Falana being very outspoken and all of that. But for me is, when have you ever seen the Nigerian government, the federal government of Nigeria, obey a court order? Sele, we saw throughout 2023, SERAP suing federal government, CSOs suing federal government, demanding for this, demanding for that. Labor, TUC, everybody taking the federal government to court, and nothing. So with the court order, I doubt it much if they are going to obey the court order. I think they are going to stick with what the federal government have said their intention is. They are obviously going to stick with what they plan on doing, which is the reserve, bringing out food from the reserve. Because, see, they cannot regulate food prices into the market. They are not in control of the exchange rate as it is now. They are not. They have floated the currency. We have the importers and exporters deciding that. So it's not like before, where the federal government was fully in control of our exchange rate and what it is, that will say, okay, they can do something drastically to make sure first that the dollar stable and the naira against the dollar stabilizes. Then that's one thing they can do. But as it is now, it's for the importers and exporters to decide that, and we've seen that it's having a free fall. Now, secondly, we import majority of these things and we still buy them in dollar. Except, I believe, if the government will secretly start subsidizing food in this country. And are we not tired of a government that subsidizes everything? Where are we going to go with subsidy? Currently, electricity is being subsidized and still yet it's not even good enough for companies to thrive and stay, even with the subsidy, because it's one thing for you to subsidize, another thing for the power to be available. Exactly, because whether they like it or not is what is landing on the shore, the exchange rate, what marketers are buying it, what retailers, middlemen, and all of those factors. The fuel, the prices that it needs to the fuel pump price affecting the transportation of these goods to their different location and all of that. The question is, except if the government can control all of these factors, then before they can do something drastically about the prices of goods in the market. Now the question is, how do they do that? How? If they have a way, we wouldn't even be where we are in the first place. That's just what it means. If the Nigerian government has what it takes to make sure that certain prices of foods and goods in the market don't go high, it wouldn't have gone high in the first place. Why? Because we keep watching inflation growing. It's not like nobody is aware of inflation. We keep watching it grow. There's prediction and estimates of its growth. We see food inflation every day. We see all these statistics and analysis coming out, and therefore they know that, you know what, if our inflation rate growth rate is at this point, they know that by December is going to be like this, by January is going to be like that. So if they knew what to do before now to stop food prices from going high, they would have done it. Because the only difference with those at the top and at the bottom is that one is sweating for that thing and one is not even removing it from their pocket. But the prices of those goods are still the same in the market. And whether we like it or not, that is why you keep seeing their expenditures going high, because they need to maintain the standard of living. Exactly. So it's everybody. So you find out that they will spend more on food. And whether we like it or not, it means they will not grow as a government. So it's also going to matter their effort as a government, because by the time you are spending this much on certain things that you're not supposed to be, it means it's taking the fund for what could have gone into something else. So it means that the government won't even have enough to do the needed, because expenses that are needed and are important are going high. As much as we cut down the cost of governance, we won't see our president shouldn't eat, for example, and the prices of food keep going high. We have to talk about the tiny things. I believe that the government is most likely going to stick with the reserve that they have mentioned they're going to do, and that is the best at this point. If they have anything better to offer Nigerians, we're looking forward to hearing that. But they have said they are going to open their reserve, so let's see what that will do for us.
Richard, my question here is the fact that if we are opening the reserve, where is the reserve? Because the number of farmers and even the people you say you are going to contact concerning the reserve, a number of experts are coming and say there is nothing in the reserve, Rachel. You can only have a reserve if you've actually listened or hearkened to the voice of farmers. Earlier on when they started crying, Rachel, we had this alert concerning food insecurity, not even just last year. It has been on. And I think that the government to some extent were taking this lifeline, thinking that, we have enough time to rectify it, until it started biting hard. And then we're seeing protests now coming up in different parts of the country. That was when I think the government said, okay, I think there's really a problem we need to rectify. How about the state governors? Because the number of people are coming out to say, okay, this whole thing tends to be on the federal government. What is the state governor? What are the state governors doing in their own state level to try to see that, let us see what can we do for the indigents of our state. But then what can we say? A number of people are coming out and say there's little or nothing governors can do. Reason why? Because even the security body entirely listening to the voice of the federal government. You cannot talk to your CP in your state. Why? Because he's answerable to the IGP, and the IGP is answerable to the president.
Yes.
So eventually there's little or nothing they can even do to rectify this issue. And so for every time we want to talk about food insecurity, you just have to touch the issue of insecurity, because the only way we can be able to get this rate, even though you mentioned the reserve and all of these, and then we're knowing that another thing that's affecting, which you mentioned again, is the fact that we are a consuming country and we do not produce anything, so we cannot even say that our naira is in demand. So whether we like it or not, it will keep falling, and then we'll keep seeing the prices of this is going high. So just like you said, I mean, the government have never hearkened to the voice of the court at any point in time. But I hope that something different will happen, because I keep saying this, Rachel, it's not a way to threaten the government, but it's just to say that if we stop listening, because I mean, we saw response saying that all of these people that came out to protest is as a result of opposition party. A number of people are saying that is the most flimsy excuse ever you can see. Is it true that people are hungry? Of course it is. When you're sitting in the city capital, you will not know what is happening. Go down to the community, go down to the rural area, the grassroots, then you will truly know what it is. No wonder, I mean, you should find these women that are selling, or men that are selling by the roadside, Rachel, because you're looking good. If you just try to price sweet potatoes, for example, the price that they'll sell it is not the same.
Very high.
Why? Because they see you like the enemy, because they feel you do not understand what is happening to them. You do not know what they have to go through to make sure that they make food available for people to even buy. So I'm hoping that, you know what, maybe just this court order will just try to bring to the forefront what the government needs to do in relation to addressing this issue of food insecurity. Because if we do not address it, when people are hungry, they get angry, and when they are angry, you never can tell the extent of what they can do, just so that their voice will be heard eventually. Now we remember, let's take a look at what's happening in Oyo State. I mean, there was an explosion in January where we saw that some people, I mean, it was being alleged that they were foreigners from neighboring countries that were actually residing in the building, and then we saw there was an explosion that a number of people died, businesses were being destroyed, houses, some people are actually in the hospital receiving either life-threatening injuries or something such as that. And here we're seeing that about 3 of those people who have been identified presently going to be persecuted. I know my question now is not about the persecution, it's the fact that our borders have been so porous, to the fact that we have people coming into the country endangering the lives of people, and then the government is not even aware of it. We remember when we're looking at that story, as when it happened in January, we mentioned the fact that residents around there said, I mean, these people are strangers. They've reported to even the heads of the community there, and landlords, head of landlords and likes of that, and nothing was being done until this explosion. And now we're trying to see investigation is going on. A number of people are saying this and that and that. And I remember a number of people are also coming out and saying, you know what, let us see the faces of these people. From which country are they coming from? Why is this thing happening such as this? I mean, at a time where you are supposed to be protecting the indigents of Oyo, why are we seeing that these people are actually threatening? And why didn't the landlords listen? How much did these people pay? There's a number of why, how, if you're going to ask about the issue of all of these things. But I'm hoping that, I mean, in as much as Nigerians will be happy that these people are being persecuted, but I know it's beyond just 3 people being persecuted. It's a question of what is the government doing to make sure that you have a license. I mean, we saw that they said the explosive device was supposed to use for mining, and you ask questions, what resources or natural resources were they planning to mine in Oyo State? These are questions that we need to ask and get the right answers eventually. If not, we'll keep endangering the lives of Nigerians at the detriment of doing things that we know is not right in the first place.
I believe for the case in Oyo State, there are information saying that, you know what, the actual tenants of the house have not been there for over 3 years. And then we have, now, just as you said, we have 3 suspects paraded, but frankly, I do believe that these 3 are not the only people that should go through prosecution, in the sense that we have a landlord, okay? He is also going to be part of the people answering questions. And then if perhaps the landlord has not been the one dealing directly with tenants, then we have a caretaker. Now, I believe one thing is for sure. If, for example, you are in a neighborhood, right, and there is a house that is known as a crack house or a drug hideout and all of that, that house is owned by someone, except if it's an abandoned building that criminals decide to make a hideout. But if there's an owner to that house, that person cannot deny knowing the ins and outs of the people dealing with drugs in their house. For example, now it's the same thing, be it the landlord, be it the caretaker. If neighbors, for example, and people around were able to say there is some illegal activities going on here, we are not sure of what these people keep bringing to store, we think it's an explosive, we think it is dangerous, who do you think they took that complaint to? It's definitely either the caretaker or the landlord. Now, you, the landlord, who did you permit to be doing such activities in your house? There can be in and out in an owned property. Just as I said, it's not an abandoned building. It's an own, exactly. It's an own property. So you can't sit down and say the landlord or the caretaker or whosoever is in charge of that property doesn't know who are these people. And I believe that they are and should be among the people that are going to be questioned and yes, and answer questions, because now this have led to the loss of properties and people are battling for their lives. And this already shows that it is not only the government that are criminals in Nigeria. We keep saying that over and over. You, at your own level, what are you permitting? What is your type of corruption? It's just the size in the corruption is probably bigger at the federal government level.
That there are bigger crimes than others.
Exactly, because now is maybe at the lower level. Money embezzlement is money embezzlement. You might just be in your office and all you could have access to stealing is 5 million, and well, the person in the federal government office has access to 500 million, so he was able to steal 100 million. It doesn't change it from being both of you are all having the same crime, are all fraudulent, are all money embezzlers, and all of that is the same thing. You who allow that criminal activity is also a criminal. You also permit illegal mining to happen. It's in your responsibility to draw the attention of the government if it wasn't under your approval. But if you kept quiet, it means you approved of it. So these are the kind of measures I want to see taken, that, you know what, it's not all about saying government allowed illegal mining. Whose land was that illegal mining happening? What did you say about it? Somebody owns that land that they are digging and taking solid and natural minerals out illegally. What did you say about it? Or is it because you were getting some percentage? Or maybe it's a government-owned property, but there are neighbors living there and you kept quiet, you didn't report it. Is it because something was being given to you, or why? Or is it because you also came out and joined them in the illegal mining?
You're actually benefiting. That's why you decided to cover up the crime and not do anything about it.
So, Stella, we're not all criminals in Nigeria. We're going to tell ourselves
they are
the
all
truth.
criminals.
Oh, yes.
They permit such
When
things
we
to
permit
happen.
certain things, we are all Nigerians. When we permit certain things, we are a reflections of our leaders, whether we
Very
like
true,
it or
Rachel.
not.
Very
And
true.
then it's disturbing on a lot of level, because when you sit when you sit down and you think, you also ask yourself the question. You can personalize it and say, would I have done any different? Would I have been given some benefit? If I was the caretaker, if I was given some benefit, would I have kept quiet and allowed these people to keep storing things that are not supposed to be stored in a residential area, and then see what happened? And then you ask yourself this question and clear your conscience, because eventually we will all grow to bigger positions, that lives will be in our hands, that certain tough decisions
you
we will have to take. What would be the outcome? So don't just sit down there and say, you know what, I'm not the one there. You will get there eventually, except if you don't plan on growing, but we all do plan on getting to higher place. Would you have done differently if you were in that position?
I think this is a question Nigerians have to ask themselves. But just like you mentioned, no wonder we're having this issue of terrorists everywhere. That is to say that these are the way they get into the community, and because you're benefiting something little for them, you decide to actually let them be, and they're at the detriment of how many people's lives.
Yes.
So imagine, apart from the fact that we're having over 335 persons that were being affected by that. So imagine if it was more than that. Even if it was just a life, I think a life matters, and I think that would do better. Now, we'd just like to round it up with the issue of reps. We're seeing that they are moving for a motion that we can have the mandatory e-transmission, that's electronic transmission of the polls result. And I think, I mean, this is long overdue, because this was a debate that took place since 2021, where we saw how many went through various stages of reading, and then before it was being approved, and even INEC coming out to say, you know what, this can go on perfectly. And then when we had the issue of election matters that were coming up, this was part of the thing that came up, where we saw the court saying, you know what, INEC are under no obligation whatsoever to actually, you know, transmit this result electronically, after promising Nigerians that they will do that. Now we're seeing that this is going through another reading, because there is a need for reform in the Electoral Act, because it seems to be a loophole in this whole thing. And you keep asking the question, the fact that, I mean, should there be a loophole? I keep saying, Richard, that for every constitution of law that we have, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's everything wrong with the people that are meant to implement
of
it.
Course.
I mean, this Electoral Act was clear, and as there was no any big thing, no big deal in this. I don't know if the English was too big for people to understand, but if you ask me, it was as clear as possible. So I wonder why we're having mixture. We also saw that of the FCT, whether it is a special state or not, and all of that. But then here we're seeing that the issue that, you know what, we should display this result electronically, because there is a need for transparency. And we keep saying the fact that this body, INEC, is supposed to be a body whereby people will put their trust and hope. But we're saying, I mean, they have dashed the hope of Nigerians over the years, and no wonder we're seeing reps saying, you know what, we need to recede this whole part of the Electoral Act again, so that things will be clear, and then we'll not have any issue whatsoever.
Not until after INEC have spent over 105 billion naira concerning the IREF and all the e-transmission, and they still went scot-free with it, and then you are about to sit down. And it's in this kind of situation I'm always tempted to want to predict and say, you know what, this will be the outcome of it. But I'll reserve my thought and prediction concerning what precisely is going to play out concerning this situation. However, I am looking forward to this being done once and for all. You cannot spend money as a government and then still debate on whether or not this thing should be mandatory. How? Is it because it's not your money? Because
money is needed.
if I am removing, for example, in your house, you remove money, for example, and buy something very expensive, are you going to make it mandatory to be used? Or are you going to say, oh fine, you can use it or not? And then your hundreds of thousands is just like, I can imagine myself being a parent, and after my child whined and whined and whined and said, you know what, he needs this toy because he has to pass maths with it, and it's very expensive, for example, and then you buy it. Are you going to come and give this expensive thing to the child and say, well, whether you want to use it or not is fine, or you can keep it to waste? Or are you going to make it mandatory? Because this is after INEC have gone on and saying, this is important, this is very important, we need it. You gave them the funding. Then you're still thinking whether or not the use of that thing should be mandatory. And this is where I don't even understand. This is where I don't understand how our lawmakers are thinking, how our leaders are thinking. It's supposed to be mandatory, with or without a debate. You can't be spending money into something and then leave it as whether or not. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that?
Richard, I just think we just have to get to a place in this country. I think you've made this point before, the fact that there should be certain laws that should not be left at the detriment of whether you choose to or not. This should be a must. That it's either this body do it the way we have said it should be done, or you dissolve that body and have a new set. I think until we get to that level whereby we do things by force, because I mean we're not supposed to be treated like children, but the way we're beginning to see things are working, it seems as if certain people need to be treated in a particular way with force,
Yes.
so that we'll have things being done the right way. Well, we hope, Rachel, that after
hope
this
so.
debate
We
or
hope
after
so.
this back and forth, we'll actually see the right thing being done,
Yeah.
so it will benefit Nigerians eventually. Thank you, Rachel,
You're
for doing
welcome,
this with
Sarah.
me. And also thank you to our viewers for making us a part of your afternoon. Until we come your way tomorrow, do have a blessed afternoon.